would you stand in the way or oppose an investment or a bailout in a Wall Street firm or bank by Middle Eastern, Asian, or Chinese investors or the Chinese government?
No, I understand the urgency of this and, have the greatest respect for the leadership of a lot of those institutions in the city and state I represent, trying to figure out what to do going forward. But I am concerned about these sovereign wealth funds, and I think we need some rules. We need some transparency. We need them not only here in our country, but internationally. And I've been calling for that. We need to have the IMF, the World Bank, working with central banks to try to figure out what this means. This is a new development in the global economy, because if you get investments from a private entity, they're disciplined by the market. If you get investments from a sovereign wealth fund that is an arm of a government, there are other factors at work. We just need to sort this out. Obviously, the situation we're facing now is urgent and the investment is necessary. But going forward, I want to see some effort made to try to unpack this, get more transparency and accountability. We've got to have a series of actions taken, both monetarily and fiscally, and it needs to happen soon. That's what I've been calling for a number of weeks now. I've got my own plan. We've got to get the president and the Congress working together. The American people are demanding action. As I travel around the country, I go in and out of people's homes. I meet them in diners. I have conversations. The number of people who are worried about losing their homes to foreclosure, who are now being laid off. I've met construction workers and casino employees who are being laid off here in Las Vegas. We are seeing the very real effects of poor economic management.
Senator,
we need a president who will run the government and manage the economy and really understand what it takes to try to help the American people
may I just go
through
back,
this period.
Can I just go back to the issue of foreign money coming into American companies and be very specific on an issue? You opposed the takeover of American ports by the government of Dubai. You opposed it vigorously.
I did.
Would you not oppose a Muslim country or a Muslim sovereign fund taking over an American bank? You'd say that's okay, but the ports deal was not okay?
Well, I don't like your characterization of what kind of funds. I'm worried about sovereign wealth funds from around the world. I oppose the Dubai ports deal because, number one, the Bush administration didn't follow the rules that had been established to do the due diligence and to understand what were the limits and the constraints on having foreign ownership of a very essential part of our strategic position economically and
people from Muslim countries are now taking significant positions in American. People from Muslim countries are taking significant positions in American banks.
Let me finish, please. It's important to have rules. The rules were not even followed in the Dubai ports deal. That's why I am calling for rules, transparency, and accountability. I don't have any particular concern about the sovereign wealth funds source. I have concerns about sovereign wealth funds in general. We have different interests often with countries in different parts of the world. Therefore, generally, we need the IMF, the World Bank, central banks, including our own, plus governments, to take a hard look at this. It's not only with the United States. We have a very large, dynamic economy. Having investments into our economy under the appropriate circumstances is a net plus. But we don't know where that will lead. And also, there are other countries with smaller, weaker economies that could be totally dominated by sovereign wealth funds. So this is an international issue.
Senator,
it's being brought to the forefront now because of our institutions having to seek outside capital.
Senator, to bring it back to the U.S. economy, because you were talking about it, the U.S. housing market, as part of your fiscal stimulus plan that you unveiled, $70 billion, $30 billion of that would go to state, local governments, community centers to help out these areas that are hit by the housing downturn and slump. But I wanted to ask you, would you take it a step further, and would you ever put actual dollars and money in the hands of homeowners who've been kicked out of their homes, essentially help bailing those individuals out?
Well, what I have proposed is a 90-day moratorium on foreclosures to see how many we can work out. We need to freeze interest rates for 5 years, and we need more transparency from the mortgage lending and servicing industry, because I think there are a lot of these loans that could be subject to workouts and avoid what will be the resets of the interest rates that will force a lot of homeowners out of their homes. We've got a weak housing market. We've lost 6% of housing wealth in the last year, 12% here in Nevada, which is leading the country in home foreclosures. The $30 billion fund would be an adjunct to the moratorium and the freeze. But I also have $25 billion going directly into the hands of Americans who are having trouble paying their energy costs.
Right.
You know, we have a perfect storm here. We've got the, adjustable rate mortgages and the other exotic mortgage vehicles that are coming home to roost with all the consequences throughout the economy. We have $100 a barrel oil with all of the consequences throughout the economy. We've got rising unemployment. We've got the fiscal irresponsibility that I think is putting us in a increasingly poor position globally. So we've got all kinds of problems that we can't just say we have to address one and not the other.
Right.
That's why what I propose does put $650 into the hands of millions of Americans to deal with their energy costs, tries to save people's homes from being foreclosed on, and give communities some help, because what is beginning to happen, vacant homes, lower property tax bases, deteriorating services, this is a downward spiral that we have to try to arrest. And I want to throw it into the future. We need to be investing in the jobs of the future for clean energy. It was disheartening to me to see the president go hat in hand to the Gulf and basically beg the oil-producing countries to start helping us out by reducing our dependence on foreign oil. That is a losing proposition.
You mentioned that we have $100 a barrel oil, and you described the energy policy in America as pathetic, I believe. I think that was exactly your word. Now, we are, in fact, importing more than half of our own oil. As president, could you ever see the day when you would allow America to drill for its own oil offshore or in Alaska? Would you ever allow that?
Well, actually, I have voted for that. I have voted for increased exploration and extraction in the Gulf of Mexico, because I think that we have proven reserves there. How about Alaska or offshore California or Florida or New Jersey?
No. Off the coast of the United States, you would never allow that? Never allow it?
Well, you're very difficult to talk to. Let me just respond to this. I believe that we do not need to drill offshore of California or Florida, other than where we already have agreed to in the Gulf of Mexico. I believe we should be shifting our tax subsidies for oil and gas away from domestic oil production and putting it into cleaner energy. I believe we should do much more on energy efficiency. I've put forth a very comprehensive energy plan that would begin to move us away from our dependence on foreign oil and move us away from dependence on a carbon-based economy. We haven't been doing that, and we get deeper and deeper into a hole because we keep thinking we're going to be able to drill our way out of that. Our economy can't do that. Our environment can't do that. And it is time for the two oil men in the White House to wake up and say, let's start this transition now, instead of going hat in hand to the Gulf, asking that prices be lowered when that is not going to be a long-term solution.
Senator, quickly, I wanted to ask you, in terms of fundraising, you have been, at least through the third quarter, #1. This is above any Democrat, any Republican presidential candidate, from commercial banks, securities and investment firms, real estate, healthcare firms. I want to know, how are you going to prove that you're not beholden to these industries that have given you, in some instances, millions of dollars?
Well, you can look at my record. I've taken on every industry that you've just mentioned, and I've not only produced results, taking on the drug companies, taking on the health insurance companies, putting forth very bold policies with respect to taking the subsidies and the giveaways away from oil and gas and beginning to make this transition to a clean, renewable-based economy. Because I am looking for solutions and results, but I also know that we need a president who will run the government and manage the economy. That means bringing everybody into this process of making our transition away from the economy with the fiscal irresponsibility that we have seen explode in our face over the last 7 years. Begin to solve our problems. That's what I intend to do. I have a vision and goals about where our country can be, and I'm excited about getting to work on it. And I'm going to ask the oil companies, they can be part of the solution. They have enormous resources and assets to begin helping us to move toward cleaner energy, to have the kind of changes in refineries that we need. We've got to all work together. I think the future of our country is at stake, and I'm going to be asking everybody to do their part.
Senator Hillary Clinton. Senator, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.